Hello and welcome to Slamfire Radio. This is episode 393 for February 25th, 2021. I'm one of your hosts, Adriel.
I'm another one of your hosts, Kelly. That's it.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Yeah.
That's the solace.
It's too nice outside now. Everyone's out shooting.
Oh my God, yeah. Hey.
Went to the range. It was so busy.
Up.
It's been like minus 40 for every weekend. Finally, it was a nice weekend. It was busy.
You know what it was here yesterday?
What's that?
6 degrees. Do you know what it was here today? 4 degrees.
Yeah, it's 6 right now.
In Alberta?
In the coldest, most northerly city with a million people in North America, it's 6 degrees. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's no longer winter.
It was -1 here when it was -10 down in Texas, where Tim was at the same time. I said, "How you doing down there?"
All your pipes freeze when it got to -1? Did your city just shut down? Just like, nope, power's out. Power's $10,000 a kilojoule. It's complete anarchy. All the store shelves are empty. There's like roving marauders on like Toyota pickup trucks, and they're spray painted silver. They got spears.
Yeah.
Looking for your Costco toilet paper.
2021, Mad Max. We knew it was happening. We got the word it was happening.
It's here.
And in Texas, of all places, I thought it was going to be like in like Australia. Nope, it was in Texas.
Very nice.
It was, yeah.
Very nice. Loving it. The chaos continues through 2021.
Well, it kind of is like karma because Tim, I don't know if he's watching or not, but you know how Tim calls himself the heat miser when we're freezing up here in the middle of winter.
He's making fun of me for all our like frozen hockey pucks and train tracks that were freezing and stuff the other week.
Yeah, well.
I haven't heard a lot from him recently about that kind of stuff.
No, karma comes back and bites you in the ass, doesn't it? Anyways.
Yeah. All right, why don't we get into what we did in guns? What we did with guns this week is brought to you by the Calgary Shooting Centre, Canada's premier firearms retailer. Right now they have S&B 9mm 1,000 round cases. It's 124 grain FMJ for $369.
Yep.
I think that's good pricing right now.
It is good pricing.
If you haven't noticed, 9mm is a little expensive, and 223 also a little bit expensive. If you can even find it.
Hey, guess where I went on Saturday?
SFRC.
Yeah, you know why?
Because it's Saturday?
Yeah, you know why?
No, why?
Because it's the first time in a month and a half that we're not on lockdown.
Oh.
They were closed. So I went and I was talking to Marcy, and I basically was there after close anyways, because, and I was having a look around, checking out the prices on everything. I said, how's the ammo? And she's going, buy it now.
What ammo? We don't have ammo. We're a gun store, not an ammo store. You got to go somewhere else for that stuff.
Yeah, no, she says buy it now because next month. So
buy it now or just don't buy it. Just wait. Just sit back, relax.
Yeah, you're gonna hopefully you've stocked up. That's what. Yeah. People
like to poke when I just buy stuff I don't need because it's a good price. But right now I'm sitting on some real cheap 9mm, some real sub 20 cent. Yes, sub 20 cent 9mm is what I'm sitting on.
What? Oh my God.
Factory. And everyone else is buying 35 cent, 37, 40 cent 9mm. How about that 223? 223 I've got is 36 cents around, I think.
Yeah, mine was around that too, about a ton of it.
Yeah, and now you're looking at like 70 cents.
Yeah.
Got to buy it when it's cheap. It doesn't matter if you need it or not. Buy it when it's cheap.
Neatan wants to know why we're not on TikTok. We were just talking about TikTok literally before you hit the go live button.
I have enough government agencies watching me. I don't need a foreign government watching over me as well.
I logged into LinkedIn. I haven't been on it in forever and 2 days, and I logged into it, a couple of days ago. And not only did I get a welcome back memo, but I also, can you see that it shows who's been searching your site?
Yeah. Who's viewed your profile? Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, so the government, the U.S. government was looking at my site. Not that there's anything there. I'm going,
They're looking to hire. That's what LinkedIn's for. It's for hiring people.
Yeah, but I don't have any information on there. Although, you know what?
U.S. government does look at my stuff. I'm not important enough. Not on LinkedIn, anyways. Other means.
Yeah.
Other means.
Anyway, I wonder if it's the people that I have on my. Anyways, never mind.
Yeah,
okay.
It's who you associate with. That's your problem. Why don't you start us off with what you did in Gens this week?
Well, I went to SFRC on Saturday.
I hear, yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't really do much in gun-wise. There was a reason, some things happened and life happened. So we didn't actually get out on Saturday night, but I did go over to Kelly's place on Saturday and I was there for a little bit. But I did actually pick up my new shooting vest. See? Nice, eh?
Oh, it's very sporty.
It's a Benelli blue. And I did pick it up and I'll be wearing it at the ski club.
Does it have a perfect size pocket for 28 gauge shells?
It's perfect actually.
Or is it for 12? It's probably for 12.
It's for 12. Let's be real. Actually, I got a guys because I need something longer to cover my butt. So it's a guys. So anyways, fits me.
What else is in that vest? Is it just like a fishing vest? Like it's got a pocket for shells? Anything else?
Yeah. It's got 2 shell pockets. This one is actually, it's got the nice bread on the back. I'm
just curious what makes it like a shotgun shooting vest. Like what goes into that?
It's just got the big pockets, the mesh on the sides. So the mesh on the sides, 2 pockets on the front. It's got a quilted shoulder, I guess, so that you can absorb the recoil. Not really. And that's about it. So I got Kelly's here too. Kelly's actually is a little different. Hers is the female's one. So it actually fits. It's fitted for a female, and it actually has little tags on the back of it. No,
if you buy the vests, they don't come with the tags. They take them off at the store.
Yeah. Anyways. Now, this is for competition. Mine doesn't have competition one.
Oh.
It's little tags. Anyways. So I got that.
Oh, you clip the number to it.
You clip the number.
Your number 4 or whatever. I get it.
Yeah. So, got those in. I'm going to go see Kelly with those. Might hang out with her this weekend. I got a Christmas present from the U.S., speaking of Michigan last week, and I didn't even tell her it came, and I picked it up, but it says badass.
Oh, sweet.
Beautiful badass, and it has on the shoulder, it has great grunt style, and we got Wonder Woman. And package from Stacy down in the US. So I wanted to say thank you to her and got that today. What else did I do? Oh, yeah. So on last night, there was a webinar. So CUSA for Canadian University Shooting Federation, they had a webinar all about rimfire. And it had Womfat, who is from YouTube. Go and check out his videos. It had Rick Ketterback, who is Project Maple Seed, as well as the ORPS, CRPS, and the X22 series on it, and had me on it. We host, and CUSA hosted it, and we had 100 people sign up. That was the limit. People got to win prizes. Somebody won a nice Vortex scope, Diamondback. And we talked rimfire, and we talked everything under the sun. They're going to be putting it out. You should actually watch it if you want to talk shooting, everything even up to, windage and everything.
3-gun?
Yeah. No, didn't talk with 3-gun, but you know what? They're going to be doing a series of these webinars. You should be on it for a 3-gun.
Yeah, that'd be neat.
You really need to be. Anyways. And that's about it, I guess.
Okay.
I didn't really do much. What about you?
More than you. I went to the range. So before the range, I got some rifles just in time too, because I was going to go to the range on Saturday And then Friday, the first thing that showed up was this guy. This tiny little rifle.
You have to do this.
I got to do that. Yeah, so for our audio listeners, this is a Carcano I'm holding up. This is a 9138 or something. It's like a kind of improved, but not improved cavalry version. So it's got a nice short barrel on it, 17-inch.
Not really improved.
It's the shortest gun I've got. I'll put it next to in my safe next to the other guns. It's like tiny compared to the other ones.
It's not a grown up yet.
It's not a grown up yet. It's a pretty fun rifle. I really like the clip feed system on it. The bolt is rough, but it's like still better than a Mosin. And the clip feed was good. I think I'm going to take it out to the range again this weekend because I did take it out last weekend. And yeah, try it out. See what happens. It's got a bayonet on it, like kind of like an SKS kind of a thing. Boop. Except hokier, like a hokier bayonet setup than the SKS is like a big ka-chunk and it goes over and you feel like, yeah, that's solid. This, like, I don't really
it's
feel
a little
confident.
pokey.
Yeah, that's all it's good for. And because this is a wartime production rifle, it's pretty rough. There's some rough spots on it, but
you know what? It's military grade. That's going to be banned soon.
This is like one of my only military grade rifles. It's the one that doesn't look military grade. Hey, no. If I need to, I can shoot. I can make shots out to 1500 with this thing. Just have to pop it up right there. There we go. Now my rear sight is ready for a 1500 meter shot. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Yeah.
Sorry, that was really loud for those that were listening.
Yeah, but the thing I was thinking about, what can you get from Milsurp in Canada right now? Mosins are $450, SKSs are $450. Good luck finding a K31 for $300 these days. Good luck finding an SVT 40 for $300 or $100 as well, because those are, geez, I think they're up to like $700 now. This is $300, so. There's not really a lot of cheaper Milsurps out there right now. This is cheap.
And again, where did you get it?
SFRC.
Great.
Yeah.
My favorite gun store.
They had that groundhog sale on, so I put that on there, and I was like, oh, I have to now. The price is excellent. Yeah. But that's fun. I went to Cabela's, and I picked up more primers. Because after last show, I was like, oh.
Did you get them for $8 or $5?
No, they're $8. They're expensive.
Oh, you're paying big dollars.
Had to get some more. The other thing I needed to get was a rail for this Savage 12 FE. This is a heavy barrel internal box magazine bolt action Savage. I got it in 308 because I wanted to compare accuracy of some of my Milsurp ammo, I guess you could say. Yep. And I stuck a big bad scope on it. And I did get a 20 MOA rail because I was at Cabela's with my mask on and everything. And one of our listeners who's talked to me before recognized me and came over, and we're talking about which rails to get. And I was like, I think I'll just get the 2-piece base because it's cheap. But the rail, the 20 MOA rail, it's right there, and it's only $70 or $80. So I got the rail.
Yeah, you got the rail. Okay. So you did a video on it too, because I saw it.
I'm fast.
You are fast.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Although the only thing that I wish I had done a little bit slower was this is something I believe has changed recently. Like, I don't know how recently, because I had a Savage 10 a while back, and they had a little like fake screw that just screwed into the plastic down here to kind of cover this hole.
Said that. Yeah.
And now they don't have them. This is actually where you access the Accu trigger. In there, you like stick the little yellow thing in there, and that's how you get to the Accu trigger. I could have sworn the old ones had a screw that covered that up, though. Anywho, other than that, like, good accuracy. I was shooting some Milsurp. I'm gonna take it out again this weekend, and I don't know, pound some more rounds through it, because what else am I gonna do over the weekends? We're still kind of semi shut down here in Alberta. You can't hang out with people in their homes or anything like that. You can't hang out with them outside. So you do like a fire outside. Yeah, go in someone's backyard and not die because it's not -40 anymore. So that's good.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You've been busy though.
Yeah. When I went to that range trip, I took a buddy of mine out that hasn't shot in a while. I ran into listener Jason, who I haven't seen in a while. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good, and that's all with the masks on. It's like, I know that guy.
Yeah, you're running into a lot of people that know you. We should have masks, right? And you could with photos of our lower half of our face and just put them on, and you can actually.
Well, I'm easy. I know you. The bald guy. The bald guy with the beard sticking out of the mask.
I hate to tell you this, but
that doesn't help.
No, not on this show. No. I'm the only one I'm the one with hair and no beard, and everybody else has beard and no hair.
Magnificent beards.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyways, I went to the range. That was fun. And then another thing showed up in the mail. Hunting gear guy fan had said hey, I got Spitfire 3X. He got the new HD Gen 2. And he's like, do you want to try out the Gen 1, the 1X? And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
So he mailed me one of those. And that's actually what's going on in my background here. Is I'm showing the difference between red dots and prism sight. Because a prism sight, the nice thing about them is they occlude less of the sight picture. So if you have to close one eye, so if you shoot right-handed and you have to close your left eye to get a proper sight picture and not get the double vision and whatever, the Spitfire is going to leave a lot more space and not cover up your sight as badly as a red dot. I shoot with both eyes open though. I'm left eye dominant, but I just don't care. I just dot on target and I just start hammering and it works. So I'm going to take that to the range this weekend, I think.
Cool.
Yeah, it's so there's a couple these are really well liked for 3-gun. Couple of different reasons. The dot is very fine. It's more fine than what you can get with most red dots. And if you have astigmatism, prism sights don't get the weird shaped dots like a red dot will. This is strictly speaking, this is an illuminated scope. It's not a red dot. Right. And the other thing
So if you have with a red dot, if you have astigmatism, it almost makes it look like almost like a football, or basically
depends on your style of astigmatism. It might even give you 2 dots, depending on how screwed up your eyes
mine's
are.
Mine's pretty flat. Yeah. So
yeah, no such with this because it's like a mini scope. Cool. The other thing that makes it really great for 3-gun is 3-gun. There's a lot of close-up shooting, a lot of far-away shooting. You could be shooting anything from 5 meters to 400 meters. So the idea with a red dot, usually what you do is you just you hose the stuff that's close to the stuff that's far. You estimate it. I think I need to be aiming 2 feet high. Start sending them until you hear the bing. With this guy, it's got a turret on top, so you can dial it in, and that's not something that most red dots don't have a dial for the elevation. So that's pretty interesting as well. So a couple of interesting pros, I guess, to a prism. One con, you have to have your head directly in behind it, and it does have an eye relief that's with it. And if you don't hit that eye relief, it's not quite right. But otherwise, that's why I'm running it a little bit further back. With my other red dots, these pictures here, you see that it blocks quite a bit of your vision. I usually run my red dots way up front because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you put them. You don't need to look through the red dot. You just need the dot on something.
But this one, it's basically like a reticle, so you have to actually look through it.
Yeah, you have to look through it. You can still do the 2-eye thing, but you do have to look through it. Yeah. Yeah, so that's kind of neat. I got out videos on the Savage 12 FE. Typical gunware. I keep seeing posts on Reddit of people being oh, my gun came from the factory like this. Something's wrong. And they're showing the bolt head has some crap on it from test firing. Or people take it to the range. They fire 200 rounds and then they come home and they're there's bare metal on this spot and it wasn't like that
pristine.
Before.
Yeah.
So I thought I've actually done this before for individual people. They're I don't know, this looks weird on my Glock. Can you show me what your Glock looks like. And I thought, you know what? Maybe I'll just do one video that has a few different styles of firearm with thousands of rounds in them, and just show what the wear looks like. So that's what the idea was with that video.
I should have sent you my picture. You pointed it out, the 1022 extractor.
Mm-hmm.
Did I send you?
No,
I showed you the picture, right?
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, where it's just like a flat. Yeah.
Yes.
I should have sent it to you. You could have used that.
Yeah, I should have thought of that. I put out like a little mini video on how a Carcano works because it's interesting and I thought it would be cool, and therefore I put it out. It's a very quick watch, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like there's a couple of interesting things that you can do with a Carcano that, or with really any Mannlicher style clip feed rifle. So I showed like putting the whole clip in, taking it out. You got to like push down the clip a little bit and then push this button here to get it out. Partial loading and all that kind of thing. So I don't know. Again, stuff that I thought would be interesting, and some people out there might be interested to see. In terms of stuff that's coming soon, I've got a Carcano review video that one of my boys is working on that I think is exported. So I need to QC it and then upload it. They get penalized if I need to add extra cuts to it. I take money off of how much I pay them for it.
I love this. That's awesome.
I give them bonuses if they add like memes or like other ridiculous stuff in it. I have like little bonuses I throw in there as well. So if you see like some real childlike humor in my videos, it might be me or it might be my kids. It's hard to tell. Very hard.
It is hard to tell. They're taking after their dad quite a bit.
Or I'm just really immature. One of the two.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna both. It's the same thing. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah. So the Carcano one will be out pretty soon. Spitfire, I've pretty much got the video done for that. I just need to take it to the range and send some rounds down and get some footage of that and see how it is. I might do a redo on. I had tried to do a video on crimped versus non-crimped. I might try doing that one again. I might do like cheap 308 accuracy compare like some with like 5 groups of 5 per page for a few different styles of 308. So I think like one group, like I got a couple of groups of 3 shots that were like right around 1 MOA with some Nork stuff, and like one of the commenters was like, "Man, that's some BS." And it's like, you're kind of right, because they're like 3 round groups. I should really take 5 round groups on one piece of paper, and that's really your proof on what the accuracy should be like, right? Yeah.
That is correct.
Can't fake that.
No, but you can actually take a dime and put it over the one hole that's way off to the side, right?
I usually put my hand over it, just like pretend like I'm showing. Or if it's like a real weird string, like you put a banana or like whatever fits to cover up the extra holes. The box, the ammo box, put that one on. I don't actually do this. I'm joking around, everyone. But and then the other thing I was thinking about was someone on Reddit was like, "Hey, the SKSs in Tarkov, they do something that can you do this in real life?" Okay. And the answer was no. So I might do a video on like how accurate that game is, because there's parts of that game that are like it's the most accurate game on the market. In terms of like gun mods and that kind of thing. And then there's stuff like mid mag or an SKS, you can like pull it to the back and lock it back.
Totally sounds like you.
I'm going to do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Video games and guns. I get to do both of these. Hook me up.
It's totally you. Guess what? It's the one I'm not going to watch because I don't care.
You know what's interesting about that game? You can mod all the guns. You can put like new forends on them. You can change the use different mags, Adriel. Different scopes.
Adriel. Yeah, I don't care.
As a self-professed gear whore, I do. Unfortunately, in the game, like a lot of the best gear is like in real life,
really
like,
expensive.
Total garbage. No. Like one of the scopes they have in there is this monstrum. And I looked it up and it's like, it's this $80 like Amazon crap. And you can get like NC Star 45-degree offset mounts. Like that's like one of the gamer pieces of kit that you can get. It's like, and there's some garbage.
You should call them and say, listen, this is what you need. This, and this. Yeah. Well, they probably already get that feedback from other people
already
too,
get that
right?
feedback. A lot of
Hey,
guys
do you know who I am? You say I'm the hunting gear guy, man. Anyways, oh, you know the other thing I did?
What's that?
Now that we're open, like I've had probably about half a dozen. Not probably. I have had half a dozen people ask me about going to the range, so I've been starting to actually set those up. Taking people to the range and getting those done up. I'm also actually I'm going to be fitting a lady to her rifles. She got a bunch for Christmas, and so I'm going to take her to the range. We're going to fit the rifles to her and that. So now that we're able to take guests to the range too, it's like Kingston's in the green. It means that we can do everything and anything. We went straight from lockdown, like everything. Now we're open. And I just trampled all over you and interrupted what we did in guns. I'm sorry.
Okay. It's kind of one of the things we do in this show is just go squirrel moment and like run off to the side. It's pretty normal. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I figured you were done because you're talking about video games.
Almost done. And then Cabela's is like dialing back their affiliate program. Oh, yeah. So I gotta do something with my website and with Slimefire as well, just to around.
Yeah, what are we going to do with that? How are we going to... Does anybody else know how... Okay. And anybody who's listening, we do actually like our sponsors and everything, but in order for us to keep functioning, we have to have things like the Cabela's Fund. So if anybody knows of anything else, let us know.
I mean, that one's like makes money because you don't pay unless people buy stuff. It's as like a marketer, like that's a beautiful arrangement. I pay you only when people are buying stuff.
Buying stuff. It just doesn't make sense, especially right now, currently in this environment.
What if sales are so good right now? They're like,
they don't need it.
I don't need to pay money for this. Everyone's buying guns and ammo. We can't keep it on the shelves. I was in there, actually, that's a good point. Sure. I was in there the other day, and there's someone who's like left-handed, and he's like, what kind of left-handed guns do you have? And it was like, this one?
Come here. Let me see your hands. Smack. Now you're shooting right.
Yeah, a whole world of possibilities will open up for you once we fix this.
It reminds me of school. Okay.
Yeah, so maybe that's it. Maybe they just don't have any problems selling stuff right now, and they maybe they have problems with inventory because everyone seems to.
The reality is they've been doing it forever in 2 days. It's a great way to actually promote your company. It's Cabela's, man.
Yeah.
Anyways, all right.
Yeah, it's cool. Let's get into upcoming events. So upcoming events is sponsored by Telos Alpha. Telos Alpha is a Canadian digital agency that works exclusively in the firearms vertical. They help with business processes, strategic planning, websites, e-commerce, and battling the stigma the industry carries with banks, merchant processors, and social media. Learn more at telosalpha.com. Do you want to talk about this CUSF? Do you want to talk about this CUSF Women's Spring launch?
CUSF, you mean?
It is like if the first many times you said CUSF, like I don't have any idea what you're talking about. CUSF is just as fast to say.
That's what they say.
Okay.
Canadian University Shooting Federation's women's program. We're having a spring launch, and it's going to be launched on Women's Day. By the way, International Women's Day is on Wednesday, March 10th. Our event is going to be, and I'm saying our because I'm part of the committee, so our event is going to be at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time or 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can actually sign up for it through Google Links. There's going to be some messaging or some stuff coming out soon about where to sign up or how to sign up. CUSF Women's Committee, we're actually really excited to announce that we're actually hosting, we're hosting an online event to celebrate Women's Day. The topic is going to be the various women's Olympic shooting disciplines. So there's pistol, rifle, and shotgun. We're going to be having some Olympians on to talk about that. Female Olympians, Canadian female Olympians on to talk about that. So we would like you guys to come on over, check it out, participate. And so we'll have giveaways and prizes, and we will actually do another post soon to tell you how to sign up. So come and join us.
Awesome. Next, that's it. We might have a 3-gun match at Chaz. We might not. Really depends on government restrictions and whatever. Right now, the restrictions in place don't look like we can do it, but we've been good. Numbers are down.
Very good.
Should be able to start things up again.
What is your numbers down to, by the way?
I don't know. Small. I'm not really worrying about it right now.
We're having around 1,000. That's it. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Want to talk about news?
Yeah. Let's get into the news.
Okay.
CCFR legal fund donations.
Yeah, just updated it. The Rondo Rod and Gun Club, $350. Bear Hills Wildlife Federation and Gun Range, $1,500. And Club de Tir Chaleur Shooting Club. And it's a really, really small club in New Brunswick, and they donated $500. So that's awesome. Thank you. Donate to the CCFR legal fund. Lord knows. Need it.
Yeah. They're going to need to do another legal thing. More legal, all the legal things.
It's been a long, long week. I can tell you that. My MP doesn't like me, I don't think. Neither does my council.
I emailed some more people.
Did you?
As I'm in Alberta, they're like, "Yeah, we're not going to do anything."
Yeah,
we're not going to do the municipal handgun ban or anything. We got better things to do.
Yeah, unless you're in Calgary, because Calgary.
No, I don't even think Calgary's not doing anything.
The mayor there?
He's still that would be incredibly unpopular. That would not be a good idea.
Oh, come on.
You could do it in Edmonton. For the population, it would be less risky to do in Edmonton than it would be in Calgary.
Oh, the mayor in Calgary just loves doing things like that and just
But while they're okay with him doing, I don't know, new other stuff, I can't imagine they would be okay with this kind of thing.
Okay. Anyways,
that's just my guess. Maybe some people from Calgary can tell me otherwise. Hey, people in Calgary, have you been emailing your municipal councillors and telling them, or city councillors, and asking them about the handgun ban? Did you get an answer from them? My dude said yeah, we're not doing anything, and then my city mayor said we're not doing anything. So. Good to go for Edmonton.
You're good to go for Edmonton? By the way, our video and our audio are out of sync. You knew that, right? Everybody's telling us.
Well, I didn't.
And apparently, you're going to have a 3-gun match in March.
We will have a match in March. There we go.
There you go.
That's coming from the match director right now. So.
He would know.
Yeah. I'm going to blame Facebook for this because my connection looks good and the recording looks good. So if the audio is so terrible that you can't stand it, watch us on YouTube. Because there's nothing I can do to fix this right now.
Not live. You have to wait.
Not long though. Tonight. It'll be up tonight. So one thing that I just wanted to mention is that there's a lot of other Canadian gun media that started recently. I just thought I'd
there is.
Summarize it all because there's a lot of it. One of the ones, The Asylum, Kyle Warner started a shooting sports specific podcast. He interviewed Taylor on
Kyle's
there
listening
recently.
right now.
Oh, is he? Cool.
Yep,
yeah,
he is.
Yeah, I listened to his podcast. It was good. I think that our podcast covers a lot about shooting sports and shooting. A lot of it's not competitive, and I think that there's room in Canada for one that just focuses on competitive shooting because that's one thing I get at Ben Stoger's podcast is really good. I like listening to his. I feel sometimes Stoger's podcast is just a little bit too far in the weeds on USPSA because a lot of the stuff they're talking about is that would be really cool if I focused all my entire life on USPSA for a couple of years. I could probably make good use of what they're mentioning right now. But a lot of the stuff they're talking about is just a little bit too far for me.
Well, the good thing about what you're talking about right now is the podcasts or the videos that we're talking about are Canadian based. So these are for people here. It's accessible. Everything is basically run according to Canadian rulebook or whatever. So
lots of reloading. Small mags.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, that's the Asylum, and I think that's on, I don't know, everywhere you get podcast.
Yeah.
CUSF is running webinar series.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I was on the webinar too for the Lady Guns. Did you know that? Or not? Well, no. I was on CUSF podcast about the women's shoot. I've been on so many things lately. I don't know when. I'm not even sure. What day's today?
Thursday. But yeah, the Lady Gun thing was between last podcast and this one.
On CUSF or the Lady
Guns
Gun live that I did?
Both. I'm pretty sure both.
Okay. So I did those two, right? So we also, as I said, I was on CUSF on Sunday and CUSF last night, and Lady Guns was last week. I don't know anymore. Anyways, so CUSF, watch it. It is generally Sunday afternoon or evening, and they have all kinds. It's spectrum. It's great for new people, people who are new to shooting as well. So, aren't you supposed to go on that soon?
Yeah.
You're just talking about getting 3-gun.
Because you told me to. You said I don't know.
Trevor's been on it. I've been on it. Why not you? Trevor was on for pistol. I was on for a rifle, one of the rifle ones. So
it'd be good to get someone who's mediocre at everything, and that's me. I got that taken care of.
No, you're awesome. He was Swelly Swede is the host of that. He's looking for some stuff about 3-gun. I said, you need to talk to Adriel. Yeah. So go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
One of them 3-gun guys who has been in university this century.
Yes.
Let's see. What else are we doing here? Rimfire Nation podcast. That one's new. That's Rick's and Womfats. And then, you talked about Lady Guns Live, right?
Yep.
What's the deal with Lady Guns Live? How do you get onto one of those things? What's the topics? What are they doing those?
So they're doing it instead of doing the women's events at the clubs, they're doing Lady Gun Live. So it's basically just different topics. Last time it was the CUSF Ladies event that's going to be happening in March. The one before that, they had Amanda Fisher on for 3-gun. No, sorry, IPSC. So it's just different topics. You can register. They promote it on all the social media, but particularly on their Facebook page. You can go there and they create an event with the link, and then you can actually sign up for it. It's through Google Meetings, I believe.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like Google Meetings.
Yeah. So free to join. All of these are free to join, free to hear. The other one that I've been listening to recently, if you haven't done it already, check out Silver Core. They've been around for a while, but he's back up and running with podcasts. He's done some recently, a little bit more high tech, and particularly with the industry as well. Recently, they had Ryan Stacy on IBI Barrels. They were talking about that. Adriel just typed it in as well. First Focal Plane is back up and running. They were actually previously, God, what was the previous name? Sean, Kurt, and
First Focal Plane, anyways.
Escapes me. Anyways, First Focal Plane's up and running. Again, they're a little bit more high tech. They recently had on some politicians as well. That was yesterday. Listen to them as well. I actually usually tune in live, and they have some really, really good guests on, especially. So
they had Shannon Stubbs on, right?
Guys are really good guys, so have a listen to that. Yeah, that was yesterday. Shannon Stubbs.
Yeah. She is married to a good friend of mine's from high school.
Oh, okay.
She's in Alberta.
Well, why isn't she on here?
Eastern Alberta. I should probably ask.
Anyways. Yeah, so those are a couple that you should check out. Those are specifically Canadian. Obviously, the CCFR has one. We have the Canadian Patriots as well. I haven't really seen anything out with them lately, but I haven't really listened to any of theirs lately. Okay, anyways, that's about it.
Cool.
But yeah, everybody's getting into podcasting. It's fantastic. Great to hear it.
All right, let's get into New Gun Stuff. New Gun Stuff is brought to you by Bolt Action Coffee. Slamfire Radio is a brand ambassador for Bolt Action Coffee. So head on over to boltactioncoffee.com, use discount code SLAMFIRE, and they'll make yours with love. They won't make anyone else's with love, just yours. If you put that special code in there, Slam Fire.
In the code, Slam Fire. It's like a pizza, right? Domino's.
Please make mine with love. Please put the love in mine. Don't forget.
Hey, Miles, can you make this one with love? I'm sure that he would. Obviously, yes. No.
Yeah. I didn't update new gun stuff. I don't think I did.
I didn't. I didn't either. I totally fell down on the job. I told you I updated everything, and I didn't.
Strictly speaking, this is my job, and
You're fired.
I'll accept.
I can't.
Yeah, that you fired.
We can't fire you. There would be no show.
I haven't really. Yeah. Next week we'll do a double dose of new gun stuff. How about that?
New gun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of stuff in the news. We didn't talk about C21 or C22, and we didn't talk about. There's some new.
You know what would be a great idea?
What?
To talk about the new stuff that's been out right now.
In the main topic?
Yeah, let's talk about it for a main topic. That sounds fantastic. It's fantastic timing too.
Right. Is he ready?
I didn't hear any audio, but the joining is like suspiciously fantastic timing.
Sorry, what's going on?
Hey you.
Yeah, we just did the first half of our show. Now we're exactly at the main topic right now.
We knew this. It was going to happen. By the way, I have to say that Ian Runkle is like super sleuth. It's like you know the show Don't Fuck with Cats. That's Ian Runkle. That is you.
It kind of, I guess, was. Although I will say I played 0% of a useful role in the whole thing. But it was
so cool.
It was kind of funny. I guess, yeah. So Adriel's kind of looking at this a little confused. This was on my Facebook.
Did you hear the story, Adriel?
No, but you're aware we're live, right? We're live right now.
I wasn't aware, but I kind of figured that was a possibility. Yeah. So I wasn't certain. So the basic story on that is that somebody posted a live stream where there was clear criminal activity going on. And in fact, there was a woman in clear distress. And lots of people in that live stream were sort of egging them on and so forth. And I was going, oh, this is bad. So this guy is being very careful not to detail anything of where he was posting or anything like that. But I went to another video and he was in a casino there. So I looked up where the casino was, and that was in Vegas, which is not surprising for casinos. And then having figured out that he was in Vegas, I found another video where he left his house and he was being super careful about, he was saying, I'm making sure I'm not catching any street signs. He was making sure he doesn't catch anybody's license plate in this. But I caught a little tiny fragment of his front house number, and it was a little tiny fragment. And he walks along in this video, and I'm watching this going, I need some sort of anchor point to figure things out. And there was a street sign for a Christian academy. And from that plus Vegas gets me a specific street address. And then I was just looking at stuff in the background. There's a tree, there's power lines that he goes under. And so I was able to follow along on Street View and go, there's the tree, there's the power lines. He's clearly turning down here. And I walked that back to, basically there's a distinctive fence that he goes through. Like there's a stone wall and a lantern. And so I'd initially called Las Vegas Police Department, and they said, like, we are aware of the situation, but we don't know where the guy is. Please call us back if you can get some details on that. And I went, okay. So I did all this. I also tried to get in touch with YouTube support, who were not useful at all.
No.
So then I got the guy's address, because at that point I could see which house specifically it was. So I called the police department back and said, I have an address for you. And they said, we have an address. We think, we've got officers on our way there. And I said, well, this is the address I think it is. And I'm pretty certain. They said, yeah, that's the address we have too. And so at that point it was like, Okay. Props to the Las Vegas Police Department, because it looks like they were on that real fast. And this is a situation where somebody was in, serious trouble with what was going on. So I guess now I'm just watching the news to see if this makes the news, although lots of crime happens that never makes the news. So I may never know actually what happened, there, or it might be that they get there and find it was just, some guy basically playing a prank. But if he's playing a prank, it was a very
good,
very convincing
real.
one. Yeah. So I'm going to be watching the news just to see, does this make the news? And if so, what's going on? But it was kind of fun going and playing
Super Sleuth.
Yeah, but I mean, this is actually sort of part of the business of criminal defense work sometimes, is you get videos and they say, here's something going on in the video. And sometimes you're trying to figure out whether that's actually what's happening. So, I mean, I've had instances where they've given me, like, at one point I got 8 hours of video, and I had to go through that 8 hours of video very carefully, looking for very subtle details, and it was not fun. But that kind of figuring things out, and that kind of, it wasn't to the same level, because, sometimes people on the internet have done things like figure out where a video is taken from stars in the background. This guy made some obvious mistakes. That street or that business sign made it really easy to narrow it down. Yeah. And if he hadn't had that, it probably still would have been possible, but it would have been a lot harder. So, but yeah, that was just, I guess, fun stuff. It was a very stressful evening, I will tell you that, because I was kind of freaked out and hoping that something could be done. And
well, you did a great job
on it. So, but yeah, that's it was a weird night. I will go that far. So
yeah, sounds like it. So primarily one of the reasons we asked you on, Ian, tonight. By the way, I don't know if I introduced. Did I introduce you?
No, you didn't.
I don't think I did.
You're so falling down.
Ian Runkle from Runkle on the Bailey YouTube channel, and criminal defense lawyer and firearms lawyer, joining us tonight to talk about CDS and Super Sleuth. Joining us tonight to not help us find a cat killer, but helping us decode, I guess, some of the finer points of C21.
Oh, and I've been putting out videos pretty much every day for a while now on C21, because every part of it, with very few exceptions, is just about terrible. There's a lot in C21. It's a very dense law. It purports to do a lot of different things. Thing number one, and this one is getting a lot of press, is it's going to ban airsoft in Canada. Right now, the government is trying to spin this as, we're not trying to ban airsoft. We're just trying to ban certain airsoft guns, which is pretty much 99 point something % of them. There's like 4 models they're not trying to ban here. So, when they say they're not trying to ban it, they're trying to ban it. There's no way around that. And this notion of, they'll start making guns for the Canadian market. No, they won't. The Canadian market is super tiny. They're not going to start bringing stuff in just for this. There's various ways that this might be gotten around, but they're not going to be sort of great. And I don't want to go into them too much.
Just use real guns. Just use real guns on the airsoft field, but don't load them.
That is actually one possibility for this, because amongst other things, they make little airsoft shotgun shells, and these are specifically designed to not match any existing gauge of shotgun. But you could 3D print something that would be a little sleeve that would let you fit that into a standard shotgun thing. And at that point, I mean, it might actually be more feasible to play airsoft with actual 12 gauges just loaded with these airsoft shells.
I can't imagine anything would go wrong with this. This sounds ironclad. This sounds like a great idea.
I mean, I have, it's one of those things that back when I was playing zombie games, I thought about this is something I could do. And then I was like, no, this is too stupid. This is too much potential for something to go wrong. But this might actually be what you end up with. Or you might end up seeing people having to tune their airsoft guns up to over 500 feet per second, which means that there's going to be a whole lot more protective equipment. You'd have to be doing that in... you might see airsoft replaced with simunitions training. And so you might start seeing simunitions fields, which, again, simunitions, they're how to get shot and not die, but you still might feel like you've died. I mean, I've never been shot with simunitions, but I've talked to people who have, and nobody recommends the experience. A big part of it is that you are supposed to feel really discouraged from being shot with simunitions. It is definitely a fail state in the training. You will... you will know that you have screwed up if you got shot with those. So all of these are potential things. But one thing as well is that this is going to kill the airgun market in Canada. Because what we get a lot of in Canada is airguns are manufactured in the States. And the States rule is basically if it doesn't use powder, then it's not a firearm. It's, into this sort of airgun category. And so what that means is tons of air guns clock in at like 600 feet per second, 800 feet per second, that kind of thing. Now, the Canadian market would treat that as a full firearm. You need a license for it. And so the way they get around that is they get their engineers to go and figure out very precise degrees of holes to drill in this thing to knock it down to somewhere in the 475 to 490 feet per second range so that now it's under that category. But now what you end up with is something that is very specifically in the law as something that is, designed or adapted to discharge a shot at a muzzle velocity that is not over 500 feet per second, but that is exactly alike to something that does shoot over 500 feet per second. That would count that as a...
that's it.
I didn't even think about that.
So all of these air rifles suddenly become prohibited devices. And I mean, if you own an air rifle and you want to say pass it on to your kids, you're not going to have to just do legal research to figure this out. You might have to do historical research into the history of this specific air gun model in order to figure out if that's lawful. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that you have committed a criminal offense because your historical research into the history of a particular air gun model is wrong? I mean, it boggles the mind. But that's the way they're sort of planning on doing it. There's a very bog standard Crossman airgun model. It's a very introductory airgun model. For the US market, it goes up to 600 feet per second. For the Canadian market, I understand it's got a bleed disc so that it'll start bleeding off pressure if you try to get it over that.
Is that the pump? Is that pump one?
Yeah.
Everyone had one of those. For the
Canadian market, it's built to bleed off if you try to get it over. So that'll be in the same category as a silencer or various other things. It's like, it makes no sense. So, that's one aspect of this very poorly thought out airsoft ban. This has been on the RCMP's wish list since forever, because basically they want to, every time they see somebody involved in criminal use of an airsoft gun, they're like, oh, that shouldn't happen. But
they probably don't like shooting kids that have airsoft guns, right?
Which has never happened in Canada that I know of.
Yeah.
I don't think they've ever
it's
actually...
probably a risk that they're thinking about. Like, what happens if some 14-year-old pulls an airsoft gun on them and they shoot them, rightfully, because if you're that dumb, you get to win a Darwin Award. But maybe they're just worried about that. People robbing places with airsoft guns, or what happens when the cops shoot them and they find out, oh, it was just an airsoft pistol. They should have known, but it's like, no, they're legit looking. Like, if you can get robbed with an airsoft pistol and not figure out that it's an airsoft pistol very, very easily.
Well, people are doing that now, like they did before, right?
And I think what'll happen is that you'll see a substitution effect in that typically the criminal law is very bad at getting people to not commit crimes, because people who are committing crimes tend to plan for getting away with it, or they're not planning at all, or they're driven by things where it doesn't matter. If you are in the throes of an addiction and you need, this is a physical need for that drug right now, saying, hey, this is illegal isn't going to stop you. But what you'll see is people saying, oh, well, I'm not going to be, they might not get the airsoft guns, because if you're going to smuggle something that is handgun sized through the border, you're probably not looking at smuggling an airsoft gun. You're just going to smuggle a real one. And so the substitution effect we'll see is for real guns being used in these things. And, as much as it might be terrifying to be robbed with an airsoft gun, it's still better, societally speaking, than if people are robbed with, with a real firearm. The ban on pepper spray, a lot of it has been substituted for people using bear spray rather than people spray. But we also saw a substitution effect with people using knives more often. And so that's, you get these, we're much better at pushing crime around than we are at stopping it, I guess, is sort of an assessment of how the law tends to work. So I do think that
bear spray is hilarious, because like one of my pet peeves about Canadian law around weapons and that kind of thing is intent laws. It's like, okay, you can't have pepper spray that you'd use to defend yourself. You can't have bear spray to defend yourself. You can have bear spray on you in case there's a bear. You can have bear spray. You can't have a sword in your car for self-defense, but you can have a sword in your car because you're going to go, I don't know, play in the bush with it and go like whack some trees and, pretend you're a ninja. That's okay.
I mean, to a certain extent, there are places where intent laws make sense. The example I'll give is possession of breaking instruments. It is 100% legal to own a crowbar. It is 0% legal to own a crowbar while you're in the process of using it to jimmy somebody's house open, even above and beyond the actual jimmying the house open. And so, for example, if they find you late at night and you are wandering around, you're wandering around a residential neighborhood, you've got a mask on, you've got a bag with a $sign on it, and, you've got a crowbar and some, pry bars and all of that stuff, they can charge you with possession of break-in instruments. And I've got no problem with that. That to me makes sense. Similarly, the possession of weapon for purposes dangerous to the public peace. I don't think self-defense in the ordinary sense of things should be considered a purpose dangerous to the public peace, but the courts have taken a different view of that. But the general notion of for a purpose dangerous to the public peace makes some sense to me, in the sense of, like, if you are dealing drugs and you are armed with a bat, then maybe we want to have a charge for that being armed with a bat. Even though you're trying to defend yourself while you're dealing drugs, that's not a purpose that is socially healthy. Equally, we can have things like, if you're heading over, you've been, beefing with somebody online and you find out their address and you're headed over there with a machete, I've got no problem with saying that machete that you've got while you're going to do that, maybe you shouldn't have it for that purpose. That's an intent-based thing.
Right.
But it does seem a little weird that you end up with this, the divide in terms of the prohibition basically comes down to a prohibition on how you label the package, because the same spray is legal if it's labeled for bears only and illegal if it's labeled for people, and in fact illegal if it's labeled works well on people and bears. So it's a labeling law that is criminal, which is like,
well, and we're getting that with the advertising law that they're putting in with this, right?
Oh, well, that one's just going to be a very, this notion that we have, I just haven't seen Canadian retailers advertising firearms as useful for use against people.
No, but American gun mags, will this stop American gun mags from coming in the country? Because a lot of them do.
0% on that. And the reason why is because they are not firearm businesses. And this applies only to firearm businesses. So if you're a gun magazine, now the one thing it might do is it might prevent gun magazines from being sold at gun stores.
What?
You could buy it at the 7-Eleven because the 7-Eleven is not a firearm business, but maybe it might run afoul of things if you are selling it, at Cabela's, at P&D, at Wolverine Supply, at any of these places, because now they're saying now you are depicting this. But I don't see a lot of Canadian gun stores. When Cabela's sells, or heck, when P&D or whoever, I'm just sort of naming some of my local stores, but there's lots of gun stores out there. And when they're selling an AR-15, back when that was a thing that could happen, they didn't really have to say anything other than just, we have AR-15s and here's the price and here's the features. That is typical of gun sales in Canada, is just, we have a gun, here's the features. And in some cases, not even that. I mean, local store going, we have SKSs and here's the features of these, and here's the price. They didn't actually tell you what an SKS is. It's just, you already know what an SKS is. Mm-hmm. We have some, come buy one. Mm-hmm. But the people who do need to, to really advertise their usefulness against people is if you are a Canadian gun manufacturer who is in the or police or military business.
Oh, yeah, we didn't think about that, did we?
Because, if you are selling, if you're a Canadian gun manufacturer and you want to sell to the military, you really want to be able to say, hey, listen, this can punch through a standard helmet at 800 yards, which is clearly you saying, shoot people with this. And that is really what I expect the military to do with their firearms, is shoot people. It's what they do. Similarly, stuff like if you're selling a riot gun to the police, that would certainly, that would very likely count as a firearm. Those have caused serious injuries in the past. Baton rounds, tear gas, all of this can cause serious injuries, especially if it catches you in the eyes but you're going to be saying, hey, this tear gas is for use on people. And we may have disagreements as to when it's appropriate and so forth. But it's clear that the tear gas is not just being used for ornamental purposes. It's not being used for, hey, we're going to create some decorative tear gas downtown. And if there's any protesters, that would be unfortunate. No, they're clearly spraying the protesters, or they're clearly. So, that's, and the other one I point out, in my video is movie industry. Because it doesn't just have to counsel violence against a person, but also depict violence against a person. So let's say you are a movie industry, you are an armorer who markets to the movie industry. One of the things you might want to say is, listen, I provided the handguns for, this movie. Let's say you provided the handguns for, John Wick or whatever else. I don't know where John Wick was filmed, but you might want to say, hey, in this clip from John Wick, where he shoots a bunch of people, I provided those guns, and you can come rent those guns from me. I will provide that service. Well, now you're a firearm business, because armorers are a firearm business in Canada. And now you are advertising that those guns are available by showing violence towards people, even though it's fictional violence. I mean, how does that make any sense here where you're talking about... So it boggles the mind here. The other one that just occurred to me as well that I didn't cover in my video, but goes back to the airsoft thing, is an issue with prototypes. Because some of these air guns are prototyped at whatever speed. Mm-hmm. They might prototype them and test them out as fast as they can go, and then engineer them down. So a lot of things where they may never have made a commercial version that shoots at a particular speed, there may be a prototype out there that does. And so you might get airsoft or paintball guns that are illegal simply because a prototype was tuned up to see how fast it could possibly go, just for amongst other things, to see if it'll explode. If we hook this thing up to a commercial source of pressurized air, can we make it explode? And how much does that, take? Well, that may be something that bans it. There's bigger provisions that might worry people. There's swatting provisions in this.
I was wondering about that.
This allows anybody to bring an application ex parte, which means you're not there. They get to present their side of the story. You don't get to present yours. And it imposes a firearm prohibition with search powers. So the first you might know of this gun ban is a tactical team coming to your door to kick down your door and take your guns.
Shoot your dog.
I mean,
they always do that.
And if you respond badly to people kicking down your door, you could be at risk. It's very much a possibility that, if you're, asleep and suddenly there's people kicking down your door and you hear shouting and whatever else, somebody could go and think that they're being robbed and, or somebody's trying to kill them and attend with a handgun in hand and get killed. And it could turn out that this was all based on lies. So, even if you are not a firearm owner, this can potentially affect you because somebody could apply for this ban based on, not liking you and just put this.
Yeah, that's the piece.
Yeah.
You know what? That really bothers me, especially people who are going through divorce and different things like that.
Yeah.
That's the piece that bothers me because I'm sorry to say there's people out there that are just that vindictive, right? By the way,
divorce makes people nuts, and it makes normal people do some pretty abnormal stuff.
Yeah, it does. But at the same time, people are out there that are vindictive, right?
Yeah. There was a story out there of a female gun owner who had to deal with something similar after her ex made a false complaint, and it was later determined that it was a false complaint. But I mean, this is useful. This is the kind of tool that sometimes can help people who are in trouble, but there's all sorts of tools that already exist for that. The only real extensions here, the only things that this does that they couldn't do before are essentially for abusers and for people who want to misuse the system. That's really where this has been expanded, is to expand this to allow abuses rather than just...
Okay.
Yeah.
So I had a question about the red flag versus the orange flag versus the down on the play
Yellow
or
card.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Right? So we talked a little bit about it last week where we were saying that with the orange, I think it's orange. We've got so many colors going on with this pandemic. I don't know where we're at anymore, but you have the orange. Who can actually make a call based on an orange? What exactly does that mean versus the red flag where we've already had it in place? So I'm not sure why we're introducing it again, but.
Well, I mean, the problem is that with these flag laws, they keep talking about different things as different flag colors. So the flag colors are super unhelpful. I mean, they are describing currently this instant ban, like this instant prohibition thing as red flag laws. But we already had that. The police could bring these applications. And I trust the police doing that a little bit more because they understand what is required for an ex parte application. An ex parte application is supposed to be brought with a duty of candor, which means that you present both the good sides of your case and the bad sides. If you have some reason, for instance, to suspect that the person reporting it is doing so out of a grudge, the police are required to present that. And they can actually be held accountable in much more real ways if they are, presenting false information here. It's very theoretically, they could bring perjury charges if somebody else did, but in practice, that's very rare that they would bring these charges against somebody making a false complaint. But there's also provisions that allow the chief firearms officer to suspend your license if they have reason to suspect, which is a real low standard. Reason to suspect that you have... So as an analogy here, reasonable suspicion that you might have alcohol in your blood can be as little as, a smell of alcohol. So these kinds of, reasonable suspicion is real low standard, and they can just hit you with a 30-day suspension on that basis.
All right. If they hit you with a 30-day suspension, is there anything that you can do? Can you appeal it? Can you do anything like that?
There's nothing written into the Firearms Act itself to let you challenge it. Now, there are provisions where you can challenge the decision of a decision maker. The problem is you're not going to get that heard within the 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to get that heard for less than $10,000.
So you're hooped.
Yeah. So basically you're hooped. And there's nothing that says that they can't, that limits them explicitly from bringing a second 30-day suspension. So they can keep bringing those. And, at that point you're sitting there going like, they keep banning me from this. How do I challenge that? What do I do? Mm-hmm. Is going to be a real big problem, because I can guarantee there's going to be people who end up on suspensions like this for 6 months trying to figure out what they should do. And then the instant they hire a lawyer, they might say, oh, well, we're done with bringing the suspension, or we're not bringing the suspension anymore. Now we're just, issuing a revocation now that you're challenging this, but you've spent all this money and the prohibition, and it's now moot when you're wanting to challenge it in court because it's gone away. Mm-hmm. So there isn't really going to be a good way to challenge these. You're going to be stuck with whatever, it's just handing a tremendous amount of power to the chief firearms officer without any sort of checks or balances. There's not any real way to, if it's abused, there's no way to correct that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I mean, you can challenge it, but you can't unshoot your dog.
Yeah. I mean, that's a big thing. The suspensions don't say that they can come seize your guns. However, what they do say is that if you are suspended, you're not allowed to use your guns for anything. And use is a very broad category. Taking your guns out to take pictures of them might count as use. So, not just going to the range.
Yeah, they're locked up.
But I mean, the other thing to think about is, can you imagine getting hit with a 30-day suspension right at the start of hunting season?
Yeah, no.
You're done for that hunting season.
I have a question about this, and one of the reasons that I had a question about it is because Doctors for Gun Control, we know that Dr. Drummond has been raising this red flag thing all over the place, and he's talked about wanting it introduced, especially from a doctor's point of view. So if somebody goes to the doctor and they feel like they're at risk and they want to make that call, does this allow other people, obviously, to make those calls and basically have our guns?
I mean, there's no limitation. I mean, the suspension provision is only the CFO. The emergency prohibition order is anyone.
Okay.
So in theory, you can bring it against somebody you have seen online in Quebec. You can just bring that application. And you don't even have to know them. In theory, you could bring one against, whoever from the Doctors from Gun Control, if you thought that they were a danger, and you could, attest to that honestly. It's really wide open for abuse.
Yeah.
And, for use in situations like somebody is annoying me on Twitter, and somebody, we've been having this Twitter argument, and, they made comments like, you would be afraid to say that in person. So I'm going to tell the judge that, this guy threatened me, when really it's just people beaking off, and nobody should take that seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very doubtful that prohibition would be upheld later in a court. If the comments were just something like, you wouldn't say that if you were here in person.
Right.
But it might be enough on an ex parte basis, especially if the person making the report was willing to sort of skew things and shade how they phrase things. Then, it might be enough to get a firearm prohibition. We're going to see all sorts of case law, and there's going to be lots of cases where people are doing this where really they shouldn't. And that's going to be it's going to be a problem. So should probably also talk about municipal handgun bans.
Yeah, let's do that.
Sounds like a Kelly problem.
Well, I mean, that's an all of us problem because you never know, like even in small towns.
Yep.
In small towns, the municipal government is often very vulnerable to being taken over by small groups of interested parties.
Uh-huh.
And so sometimes in small towns, you see bylaws being brought specifically to mess with, a neighbor or a business competitor. And can you imagine a better way to mess with your neighbor than to basically kick them out of town?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this is going to end up with this weird patchwork of laws that apply in some places and in others. And I'm going to be kind of scooping myself for my video that I'm going to get out tomorrow. But one really interesting thing on this is that the way they're trying to get around the whole division of powers issue is that they're putting these on as a condition of your license.
Yes.
So what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it means in order to be punished under this law, you need to have a firearms license. You literally cannot be punished if you don't have a firearms license under these new provisions. It specifically gives a pass to criminals. So,
yeah.
like, this is a law that is 100% targeted at law-abiding gun owners. And literally, like, normally we say criminals will ignore the law because that's what makes them criminals. But criminals can ignore this law because they are exempt from it. They have a get-out-of-jail-free card. And so, when the Liberal government here says we're not targeting law-abiding gun owners,
they specifically are. And
they are. There's no one else that's affected by this. So... but I mean, if you look at what this means, I mean, it might mean that because of a change in your city council, you have to move or else, give up your firearms. It's very weird. And I feel bad for people who are living, in Toronto or
Kingston
Montreal
or Kingston
or Kingston. I mean, thankfully, the current, sort of leader of my city has said we don't plan to do it. But, if you're living in Vancouver where they've said, yeah, we want to run this through as fast as possible. I mean, what do you do if they, if they're doing that? So especially if you happen to be somebody who's like, let's say you're an Olympic shooter,
mm-hmm.
You are, and let's say this is how you make your living, or there's people whose living is that they are a competitive shooter. Mm-hmm. And that they have sponsorships or, whatever else, saying you can't be in our town anymore is going to be a big deal. There's also going to be huge constitutional issues. There's going to be major fights over this one. It's been a while since there's been such a big constitutional issue in terms of division of powers, but this is really
this one's interesting. I want to see what happens with that.
Oh, I mean, it's going to be a Supreme Court issue. In fact, I would be shocked if the Supreme Court justices in their own time, mm-hmm. because of course they talk to each other and so forth.
Yeah.
I would be shocked if there wasn't some chatting about, so guys, what do we think of this one? Because it's really novel. And I mean, they've made public statements which are relevant to these questions, when they say, oh, well, we're not trying to interfere with, the division of powers. Well, they've also made public statements that say explicitly that they are.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it's, but it's such a bad.
It really, really is when you start going through it and you break it down.
Oh, absolutely. There's various places where it's just.
They'd get an F.
Maybe not an F, because I'm not that hard of a marker. But it would be coming back with some red ink on it, with lots of red ink in lots of places going like, what the heck?
Okay, for lack of a better term, if you're going to be this is going to be law, right?
Yeah.
You need it to be bulletproof.
Yeah, I mean, there's parts of this that I'm just like when we go back to the advertising section, I'm just like, guys, not think about this.
No.
It's clear that they need a big problem with this is that they're deciding this entirely with a pool of anti-gun people who are like stridently anti-gun and don't know anything about it.
That was apparent. Yeah, that's why I said there's a lot of stuff in there that when I looked at it and I compared it to some of the things that are out there, let's say on Twitter, etc., it's exactly what's being asked for or being talked about. And as I said, it's poorly written. So
they just didn't think about some things. Like they didn't think about,
impacts,
what happens if you are selling to the police?
Mm-hmm.
Like that is a question that if they had me in that room, even if they didn't ultimately sort of go with my thoughts of, hey, this is a dumb idea in general, they probably would have said, I would have said something like, hey, what about these businesses, guys? Like, and so you need that broad, like when you're legislating, you really need that broad base of knowledge, ideally, to come up with things. And we do this in other areas. We have drug policy, and some of the people I would love to see in the room for drug policy are people like, people who have been addicts and people who have worked with addicts and that sort of thing. Even if you think something is absolutely bad, you want that base of knowledge, and when they say we need a base of knowledge about firearms, they typically bring in the RCMP, but the RCMP are not gun owners. They're not gun business owners.
But the RCMP...
Well, in these cases, it looks like they brought in Polytechnique and the Doctors for Protection Against Guns because they implemented a lot of their policy, not stuff that the RCMP is asking for
and in some cases, the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police have said
they don't even agree with us. They say this is a piece of crap. Well, I mean, for lack of a better term.
Like with the municipal handgun bans.
Yeah.
Guess who a group who tend to own handguns in their spare time is? Police officers.
So I live in Kingston.
Yeah.
Where the majority of penitentiaries in Ontario are.
Yeah.
So how many correctional officers are working at 6 federal institutions? We have a military base in our city.
Yeah.
We have a municipal police force that's specifically Kingston, and our municipality is looking at doing a gun ban.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these correction officers might be people who own handguns.
Yeah.
And, it's going to be a real messed up situation when you start having, police officers saying, what do you mean I can't live in the city where I work because I have, And for a lot of these police officers, they consider training on their own with handguns to be essential for their job.
Yeah.
Because they get, something like 600 rounds a year for training.
No. Well, corrections, no. We actually get 100. And that's on the day. That's your qualifying day, right? You qualify and that's it. But that's also actually, you're talking 9 mil, you're talking 223, and you're talking 12 gauge. That's what you got.
I mean, 100 rounds in a year, I have blown that on, substantially more than that on one range trip.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, we're talking specific to my city, but
for sure. But
right?
I mean,
but there's other cities that are out there that are going to go through the exact same thing. It's just, yeah.
I mean, if I was a police officer and they're saying, hey, you get 100 rounds per year of training, I'd be saying, listen, I'm required to carry this handgun and I'm required to potentially use it in defense of myself or defense of others. And so I would, and I'm not a police officer, but I'm just saying if I put myself into their shoes, I would be thinking I have a strong moral responsibility to be good with this gun.
Yeah.
Because every bullet that comes out of my gun, I own either in the sense of potentially legal consequences, but also just moral consequences. If I shoot at somebody and I miss and it goes down the street and lands in a toddler, I'm going to have to live with that. And so I want to make sure that that doesn't happen, that every, round I fire is one that goes where I wanted to put it, and that I have the training and background and experience to know that in a stressful situation, for instance, I'm going to still be able to do things like look beyond the target to what's behind it. And the only way you can learn those kinds of skills is training and practice. I've seen, and I haven't seen the guy at the range in a while, partially because I haven't been going as often as I'd like. But, there was a guy who was at the range the one time and he was running laps, like just full on running. And I was like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm a cop. I do this so that I'm out of breath. So I'm, full of adrenaline. And so that then when I'm practicing, it's practicing like, what if I had to chase somebody for 10 minutes and then, they turn on me with a knife? Am I still going to be able to draw and fire and, do so reliably? If they're not getting that training, some of the most the most diligent, the most responsible officers are doing that themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who this law is going to target. It's
No, I know.
so bad. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's two schools of thought on this. One, they've put this through just before, it's not anticipated that they're going to be able to get this into law before sort of it dies on the order paper.
Correct.
So one school of thought is that they may be just purely making a show of this.
Mm-hmm.
They may be saying, we tried to introduce this and it went nowhere, and then not reintroduce it. But they might reintroduce this. They might really be pushing at this and just sort of, so we'll have to see. But
they if you look at our firearms law, our criminal law that involves firearms, 100% of the crappy legislation is from the Liberal Party in the last 20 odd years. There's not anything. So like the fact that it's bad is not a very good defense of it not going through. It's now the timing is suspect because they're probably going to have to go to an election. But I would imagine immediately after the election, they dust this piece of crap off and they put it through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, it's one of these situations where it's just really it's at that intersection of, malice versus ignorance. Is this accidental that it's so bad? Or is it just terrible that, or is it just intentionally bad?
A lot. It's always been bad, though. Like the C21, the 68, like all of their bills are always bad. They're always full of just complete garbage. Like the
I have really not been
arbitrariness
impressed with some of this. I mean, even stuff like their, impaired driving changes, for instance, I think have had big problems. So, and big problems in ways that basically mean that innocent people, like from a moral perspective, morally innocent people can end up facing charges and facing trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always concerning to me. I don't want, if somebody's going to jail, I feel like as a fundamental thing, we should think that they're a bad guy, like they're a bad person. They've done a bad thing. And I don't really buy into the whole notion of bad guys as a category because typically I'm a big believer in rehabilitation. I've seen it in action, but in order to deal with rehabilitation, you have to deal with underlying causes, and criminal law is terrible at that.
Yep.
But I still think you should have done a bad thing, right? That person should be sitting there facing the punishment saying, you know what? Yeah, that thing I did was actually real bad. And, society should be in agreement with that. It shouldn't be a situation where somebody gets out of jail and, at their latest job, somebody asks, so what were you in jail for? And they explain it. And the guy goes, what?
Huh?
Like, that's illegal? You lived in the wrong town? What? Like, it's... And as I said, this is going to be targeting some people who I think are really not who we usually want to target with the criminal law. Police officers being kicked out of their towns is like, it boggles the mind.
Yeah.
It can't have been an intended consequence, of this. It just,
It
but
is.
it also, I think that they just didn't think about it.
Smashing case of firearms law. Got an election coming up. This vaccine rollout's going terribly. Yeah, let's change the subject. Let's talk about gun control instead. Let's talk about assault rifles. Put some pictures up. We'll talk about how we're banning a bunch of scary guns and anti-aircraft guns and stuff like that. We'll get some support. Doesn't need to be good. Who cares? The people that this affects weren't going to vote Liberal anyways. That's that's hyperbolic, but I'm just that's probably the decision making process they're going through. This is going to hurt our opponents more than it's going to hurt our supporters. Who cares?
That's correct.
It actually sort of it would not surprise me, honestly. This seems to be a bit of the legislation that we see sometimes, which is legislation aimed to make life difficult for your political opponents.
Mm-hmm.
To target the group of people. And I mean, the Liberals aren't unique in this approach, but they've really doubled down on it. I mean, if you look historically in the US, they actually brought in legislation, like some of the marijuana legislation and so forth was brought in specifically to go after the American left. And that, basically, if they're going to vote against us, well, we might as well send the police after them. And so this does end up feeling a little personal. It feels a little bit like, and it's weird because I am, a lot of people assume I'm super right wing because I'm a gun owner, but I'm not. I don't really map easily to a political party. I've got all sorts of views all over the place, and some of them are quite a bit, there's no party I agree with.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they basically come after me and say, we specifically, it's very hard not to think that they're taking it personally when it's a law that only affects law-abiding gun owners. Like, This isn't like, hey, we're going after criminals and law-abiding gun owners are caught up by accident. No, I'm the guy in the crosshairs here. So it's hard not to take that kind of thing personally. And exciting times, I guess, that we live in. And we'll just have to see. Sadly, the voters appear to have an appetite for that, which is also disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it must be the only. It's a decent topic to use as like a whipping boy topic, right? Like it doesn't affect a lot of their. It riles their base up. It's good to get the support in. It's kind of a nothing burger for the people that it hurts in terms of pure voting. So it
doesn't harm their constituency, and by and large, it doesn't. It's really sort of an urban versus rural kind of thing as well, is that, the parties that have broad, sort of urban support tend to be more willing to, not need support from rural voters. And so that kind of turning Canadians against Canadians, I'm not a big fan of. I'd like to see everybody, come together and have much more consistency.
Yeah.
Why can't we all get along?
Yeah, probably not going to happen though. Just looking through to see if there's anything else that we could get your opinion on. Like there was a couple things in there that were like patently obvious, like removing the ability for CFOs to grant protection of life ATCs. Like that was an obvious preemptive move to try to keep the Alberta and Saskatchewan CFOs from doing that kind of thing. And the funny thing is that's one of the only provisions that has the opposite effect of one of the things that they're trying to stop here is a homicide of intimate partners. And I think that an ATC for protection of life is one of the things you could do to help stop intimate partner homicide. It's not a thing anymore.
The thing is we put court orders on people all the time to say you need to stay away from somebody and you need to whatever, and they're effective in the sense that they allow for an arrest afterwards, but they're not effective in the sense that they don't actually if you have somebody who's seriously violent, they're still able to go to that house and engage in violence. At the end of the day, a court order is great, but they make very poor shields. You can't stop a knife with a restraining order. You can't stop a bat with a restraining order. And the police, as always, the police do their best, but the police are not designed to be preventative. They're not going to be able to get there in time to stop most of these attacks. That's just because you don't live next to a police station. They have to drive there. So, if we're talking about a situation where protection of life is at the highest, I have seen situations where people are, have domestic partners who they've left who are extremely violent people. And, those people might have cause. And sometimes they're not just extremely violent, but they might be extremely violent and tied up with, for instance, organized crime.
Mm-hmm.
If you are, if you have left a gang member, you may not have the risk solely from that gang member. You may also have a risk from his buddies.
Yeah.
And, and that's a concern, right? It's, and I think that the courts in terms of a finding of, possession of weapon for purposes dangerous to the public peace, if it's like, hey, this particular gang is out to get me, so, they might be more lenient on that. Even just, having it within your house, for example, might be, but it's very clear from my reading on this, what they want to do is take that power away from the provinces because they're worried that a couple of provinces might not be wanting to play ball with them. Because what they don't want is an example of this being used successfully.
Right.
They really don't want the example of we gave, this battered spouse an authorization to carry, and her ex came to her house, armed with a knife, and she shot him. And I mean, I don't feel that that's a terrible thing if he's coming there to do her violence with a weapon. And, as much as I believe in rehabilitation, I also believe in self-protection. And, so I think that that's really what they're trying to do, is they're trying to make sure that has a unified front and the unified federal policy, which is essentially make sure it doesn't happen.
Yeah. You can't really, you can't use fire. Well, you can use firearms for self-defense, but you can't market it or have it as an intent or get an ETC,
Right.
any of these other things,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, I wonder how long it'll be before they try to take that out. You just can't defend your life with a firearm at all. We're not far from it. We're not far from it right now. And a lot of these provisions are taking away like any of the possibilities around using it in terms of intent or in terms of owning it for that or marketing it for that. That's all gone.
If you've got some spare time, what I might recommend, and I'm going to have a video out on this, I'm waiting for the verdict.
Mm-hmm.
But the case of the Queen and Cahill at the Supreme Court. That the video of the argument is online at the Supreme Court's webpage. And so you can see the arguments made. And that's like, an hour and a half of video or close to 2 hours of video. So it's a bit of a time investment. I'll do a shorter video covering, sort of the discussion and the verdict. But a lot of the discussion comes down to essentially, should Mr. Cahill potentially have been barred from a self-defense argument because he went out to investigate that noise, investigate the the break and enter of his truck with a firearm? Does that, was that activity something that we want to say, if you went out there with that shotgun, you're not allowed to defend yourself anymore? And you can see some really pointed questions in that direction from some of the justices. Now, one thing I will caution when you're watching Supreme Court discussion like that is that just because a Supreme Court justice asks you a question doesn't necessarily mean that that's what they believe. Because the Supreme Court justices want to test your position, right? Mm-hmm. They're, if you think of like a sword maker, I know a sword maker, and one of the things he'll do sometimes is take a sword and like hit a stump with it. And that's because you want to see if that sword is going to hold up. And it's not that you want to break the sword. You're actually hoping that it holds up to it. But the way you test somebody's position is by attacking it with hard questions. So I wouldn't necessarily assume, just because the Supreme Court justice is saying something one way or another, that it necessarily means that's what they believe. But you can see that these are the issues they're playing with in their head. Like, this is some of the questions that are coming up. And it'll be really interesting. I'm really watching this one just to see what they come down with, because this could end up meaning that self-defense gets super narrowed in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be, in my view, a mistake, because it essentially means that you might end up seeing a whole lot of people going to jail again for sort of morally innocent behavior. I feel that if somebody is in defense of their life, even if they might have been a bad person to get there, they should still have self-defense provisions. You know, I covered a case out of, I think it was Toronto, where some guy was a clear bad actor. He was involved in, various sort of gunfights in the past, but he was still able to rely on self-defense when that actually, when that resulted in a death, and was acquitted on that basis. And I actually I'm okay with that, because the same provisions that protect that guy protect me. And I don't want to be in a situation where, if I hear somebody shouting threats from outside my house and I step outside with a shotgun because I'm concerned and I'm wondering what's going on, I don't want to be in a situation where if that guy then rushes me, that it's like, oh, well, your job at that point was to die.
Yeah. It seems like actually the I hate to bring it to a U.S. example, but the example that's very similar, like the Rittenhouse case where he ended up shooting those three guys at that protest, right? Because all three examples look pretty clear cut cases of, it looks like self-defense to me. But a lot of people are like, oh, well, he broke this one law because he was a minor and he borrowed a firearm, and he because he was 17 and not 18, broke the law, and therefore he deserves it, and he couldn't defend himself.
And it's complicated in the States because, and I'm not going to purport to be a U.S. law expert, but a lot of places in the States may, for instance, have provisions that say that you can't defend yourself if you were involved in a crime.
Commission of crime. Yeah, that is one of the that may actually sink him and make him catch those charges. Yeah, not because it wasn't self-defense, but because he borrowed a firearm he wasn't supposed to.
Yeah, and but I mean, to my mind, that's kind of a weird scenario, or not. The sort of a counterexample I'd give to that sort of thing is, like, let's say I'm out hunting, and unbeknownst to me, I just wasn't paying enough attention. My firearms license expired last month, expired, a year ago, say. And so me having my hunting rifle is unlawful at this stage, but I've screwed up, this is my bad. But while I'm out there, somebody is living in the woods and they're high on meth and they see me out there, this is an example that happens sometimes is, let's say they're out there and they've got a massive grow up, and I blunder into this grow up and they decide that they don't want me getting out to potentially inform the police about this massive grow up. And because they're organized crime, they're willing to engage in some fairly serious activities to prevent that. So let's say they come out and they're on, an ATV with a handgun and they're shooting at me, and I use that hunting rifle and shoot back and kill them. I think that would be a very textbook self-defense situation. And I don't think that self-defense should be precluded, even if that, going out with the rifle was itself illegal, because it's like that, to my mind, is the far lesser crime. I think that the Canadian model, which, looks at that and looks at the sort of broad, spectrum of things, is a much better model. Because, for instance, let's say I was going there to, instead armed with that illegal rifle because I wanted to steal weed from that operation. The court would be a lot less likely to find that was self-defense if that was my operation, because now I've involved myself in something that I knew was going to be trouble, right? So they're going to say, you kind of created that scenario because you went there to steal from organized crime with a rifle. What did you think was going to happen is going to be part of the consideration.
Yeah.
I like the Canadian model for the most part. The U.S. model tends to be a lot more technical and rules based, and when it's technical and rules based, you get into those weird scenarios. But I'm going to be watching the Rittenhouse trial. I don't know if I'm going to do too much commentary on it because I try to focus on Canada.
Yeah.
But it's going to be fascinating and it's going to be international news. So.
Yeah, just because, again, of the identity politics issue that it seems to be around.
I mean, often you have to sort of divorce yourself from the sympathetic nature of either side because, quite frankly, I have some sympathy for everybody who was there to some degree or another. It's a tragic event. It shouldn't have happened. And there's all sorts of mistakes made. But that's usually the way. I mean, somebody asked me at one point, they said, what's your biggest self-defense tip? And it was walk away from fights. It's whenever I see, homicides, a lot of it has come down to people not walking away from fights. And I get it. It's hard. It's humiliating, but a lot of people have died because they couldn't, sort of step away.
Oh, we were talking about last week, the people who are yelling at each other, like, over they're shoveling snow in the U.S. And the couple are like, "Oh, you got a gun? Sure, why don't you shoot me? Why don't you just you wouldn't dare? You go ahead and shoot me, you pussy!" And guy wastes him. It's like, what were you expecting?
Well,
this is entirely preventable.
There's the one recording that's sort of the famous one of what are you going to do? Stab me? Quote. Man who just, who got stabbed.
Stabbed person. Victim. Stabbing victim. Yeah.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of crimes where the thing that immediately precedes the violence is sort of an invitation to violence. I covered that Twisted Tea.
I was just going to say, you covered that.
And I mean, the thing the guy says just before he gets hit with a can of Twisted Tea is
hit me.
It's like, that guy, had he been a little smarter, would have realized the thing to do here is to walk away.
He was drunk.
I mean, he was drunk. But the thing is that equally, the other guy, the guy who hits him with the can of Twisted Tea, who, let me be fair, that guy has almost all of my sympathy on this one.
He's a big guy, too.
I mean, he's a big guy, but
a huge guy, anyways. And he had a lot of patience, but he did hit him.
Some people need to get hit in the face with a Twisted Tea. They just need that.
But the thing is, that video could have easily gone another way because I've seen the cases where a guy gets hit with with a fist or whatever else and comes up with a knife.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, that moment of, hey, I'm righteous feels great when you win. But lots of people end up stabbed to death or shot to death in those cases because you never know who that guy is. You can see he's tweaking out on something.
Mm-hmm.
So the safety tip is usually to walk away.
Carry Twisted Tea.
That doesn't necessarily mean that you are required to do so by law, but the safer move for both of those parties was to just, separate out. And those kinds of fights are how people end up dying. It's a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Over silly things. Ian, it's been fantastic having you on the show here. I think we could talk all night here, but got to let you go at some point so you can get back to your regular life. You've been make more videos. You've been crazy busy. So tell our listeners where they can hear more about you and check out your stuff.
So I'm on YouTube at Runkle, which is Runkle. I know it's a really awkward, strange name of the Bailey. A lot of videos. I've lost track as to how many I've got posted, but I just ticked over 2 million views. So check it out.
That's something.
Congratulations.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks for coming on the show and giving us some of the ins and outs about C21.
Thank you. And it's a pleasure anytime. Seriously.
All right. Thanks, Ian.
Bye. Okay.
All right. Do we have anything on Facebook to talk about?
No, just Doug Rodenbush joined us a little late. He wanted to know if there was a link for the Supreme Court of Canada video that Ian was speaking about. I actually tried to look it up while you guys were talking, but I couldn't find it, so I'll have to do that afterwards unless you found it.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Cool. All right, so we've been kind of answering Facebook as we've been going along. Oh, listener feedback is sponsored by Armory DC Gunsmith. Armory DC Gunsmith is a full-service gunsmith who specializes in firearms refinishing. He offers hot bluing, parkerizing, Cerakote finishes, as well as wood and steel refinishing. Check out his online inventory of new and used guns, firearms accessories, optics, and more at dcgunsmith.ca. So we've been doing the Facebooks as we've been going along.
Yeah, and we don't have any new emails. Although, well, we did. Technically, we got emails, but everybody was asking for my chili recipe, so I sent them to them. And then I also sent them to them on Facebook Messenger as well.
You're lying. No one asked for your chili recipe.
Seriously, there were people that asked for it. I sent it out to them.
No one asked for my chili recipe. I don't have a chili recipe. Don't email. Don't ask. I don't have a chili recipe. Even if I had one, you wouldn't want it. It would be weird.
No.
If you want to email the show and ask for my weird chili recipe, send an email over to slamfireradio@gmail.com. Or you could ask for Kelly's. It'll probably be edible if that's your thing.
Well, okay. Sure.
Podcast app reviews. We have one on Facebook. This one's from Graham. This is a great podcast for Canadian firearms owners. The fact that they can come up with so much content speaks to how active and interesting the Canadian gun culture, community, and industry are. If you have any interest in guns, news, shooting sports, or just casual banter, this is the show for you. The hosts and their guests are the cream of the crop for education, entertainment, and advocacy for Canadians. And the audio levels are good now, too. Here's a shout out to my fellow gunnies, since this review is being read on the show right now. P.S. Support the CCFR early and often.
Yep. It's awesome.
Indeed. Patreon supporters, if you'd like to help support the show, head on over to patreon.com/slamfireradio and sign up. We'll send you a patch and a sticker. And if we haven't sent you a patch and a sticker, email the show and we'll send you one. Kelly, do you have any shout outs?
Nope. I'm good.
I
can't think of it.
I don't know if I can shout out the person I met and talked to, because I'm not sure if they'd be cool with me saying their name on the show, but
we'll just
shout out to that person.
Okay. And you know what? I'm going to give a shout out to Ian, because he did something and he cared and he made a call and he followed up and he's making a difference. So that's
definitely.
That's it.
Finally, check us out on Gun Owners of Canada. Like us on Facebook, review us on Facebook, and join the CCFR. See you next week.
Bye, everybody.